here. Come on in.
Добрый вечер.
Good evening. This has been a long day. We have had talks with the State Secretary of the U.S., Rex Tillerson. Right now we have had a long conversation with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. It has lasted for more than 2 hours. The negotiations have proved to be substantial and very frank. They have comprised the whole gamut of issues of importance to our bilateral relations as well as our interaction in the international arena. We have taken note of the fact that the current stage of our relations as well as the international situation as a whole are not the most calm ones. There are certain issues that have been inherited, so to speak, as time bombs from the previous administration, the Obama administration. We are being realistic, and we do understand that in order to overcome these obstacles, we have to make efforts, and we seek to do that. We understand that our American counterparts are going to move towards us as well, and our President has reaffirmed
попытки помешать нашему сотрудничеству,
we see that attempts at preventing our cooperation, there are even attempts escalating the confrontation, but we do not believe
that
this is an approach. We do understand that if Moscow and Washington cooperate, this is for the benefit not just of our nation, but also for the sake of the whole world. We have reaffirmed that we both seek to fight without any compromise the international terrorism. This issue has been raised by our presidents in the course of their telephone conversations, including their telephone conversation on April the 4th in the night when President Trump called President Putin in order to express his condolences on the terrorist attack that has taken place in St. Petersburg in the context of fighting international terrorism. We have talked about Syria, of course. We have touched upon the incident that took place after April the 4th, when in the environs of
we obviously paid a lot of attention to Syria, and we obviously spent some time discussing the incident of the 4th of April, the Idlib incident, the place where chemical substances were used, and then the subsequent U.S. missile strikes on the 7th of April. We, as you know, have put our point of view on a number of points, and we have insisted that today that we have a very thorough investigation of all that. The Russian Federation has said that what we want to do is to apply to the OPCW in Hague, so that they have the full competences to initiate such an investigation. And we have drawn attention also to the letter which has been sent to Syria and the UN about the ban on chemical weapons, to make sure that they give permission to the investigators to carry out an impartial, unbiased investigation in Idlib and also at the airfield which underwent the attack. Mr. Tillerson supports this kind of investigation, and he said that the powers will be triggered immediately in order to do that. We shall attempt in the Security Council to approve a memorandum which will not be so much about the investigation as to try and fix and identify the culprits. So we don't want to impose any kind of line on anyone, but we want an honest investigation of the affair. We also very thoroughly discussed the situation with regard to our air forces with the US-led coalition and the Russian forces, and we talked about the deconfliction memorandum during the operations in Syria. You know that this was halted, but President Putin confirmed our determination to put it on track again, confirming that the main aim, of course, is between these forces of the coalition and the Russian forces is to combat Jabhat al-Nusra and other terrorist organizations, and ISIL, of course. The publicly publicized intention of both Russia and America remains in place, not to interfere in the internal affairs of the country, and we trust that countries in the region should not repeat this kind of incident, particularly the countries of the Middle East. We confirmed once again our overall determination to rout ISIL. That remains in force between us, and this was today confirmed fully. Apart from fighting terrorism in Syria and the region in general, we have a common interest to make sure that we get a political settlement of this very acute crisis in Syria. Russia, over the past years, has tried to get a compromise, has deployed many efforts in order to do so, and make sure that many of the players inside Syria and outside get them round the negotiating table in the context of the UN, and we confirmed that our cooperation would be to try and prod this process forward. We participated, of course, in Geneva with our American colleagues fully, but we also have the Astana platform where the US took part as observers. We have to help the international organization, also community, to try and find approaches to make sure that the Israel-Palestine issue or conflict is looked at, and Yemen as well. And I think that our joint efforts will not be useless in that respect. We looked at the problem of Afghanistan, as you know. In the last couple of years, we have been meeting in various formats which were aimed at external assistance to Afghanistan, and one of the attempts which we have undertook will culminate on the 14th in Moscow, the so-called Moscow format, with the participation of both Afghanistan and its neighbors, including Asian countries, and we hope very much that the US representative will also be there. We have also touched upon the crisis in Ukraine. We have a single common position, and that is that the 2015 Minsk agreement should be fulfilled. And we remembered how the previous administration of the US had established a two-way channel of communication between Moscow and Washington, and we have also worked, of course, within the format of the Normandy arrangement, and we undertook to continue contacts in that format in order to find practical ways forward to fulfill the Minsk agreement. So we applaud such efforts, and of course we are fully in favor of them. Russia and the US are particularly committed to try and find solutions to other problems and try and to avoid confrontation in Korea, the Korean Peninsula, and to start a negotiation process in order to settle the question of stabilizing the Korean Peninsula through political and diplomatic efforts. We are particularly concerned, of course, about the regional and global military political build-up. We need negotiations about strategic reductions, where we do have agreements between our two countries about that, but there has been a pause in this process for objective reasons, and that caused by the White House, and we believe that it is very important to continue to work on this arms reduction and work very businesslike, in a businesslike way, efficiently, and we agreed on that. We mentioned the situation with regard to our economic relations, and we sympathize with American business to avert the negative process at the moment and increase contacts for both objective and subjective reasons. This has happened. We fully support the business communities in both countries, and we hope very much that direct contacts can be established on both sides. One more agreement, we agreed to nominate special representatives from the MFA and the State Department, so that without too much emotion we could look together at the irritants which have dogged our relations over the last couple of years, particularly under the administration of President Obama. I think that if both sides apply a pragmatic approach, this will yield results, and it will go to make our relations much more healthy. We understand that in our relations there is certain discomfort, and of course that is vitiated by the technology progress, particularly the virtual world and the cyber science, and some people are clearly abusing these possibilities provided by modern technology and trying to use them for very illegitimate political ends. I think that both the US and Russia, in those both countries, there are a number of sensible, reasonable people who can weed out the ground, and in the interests of our peoples, we can overcome this problem. This at least is my sensation from the talks, my feeling. Despite all the rather deep-rooted problems and some which have been artificially created, I think there is a great potential for work in the future. We have an open and frank dialogue with the US on many issues, and we have to make sure that works, and it is directed at the reciprocal interests of both countries. We obviously hope reciprocity from the US, and I'm absolutely sure that today's meetings, the many hours we spent with Rex Tillerson together and with the President of the Russian Federation were not spent in vain. We understand each other better after what we've done today, and I hope very much that these contacts will be continued directly between us and also through those people who cooperate and other agencies of the US and the government of the Russian Federation. Thank you.
Good evening. We just came from a productive meeting, as you heard Foreign Minister Lavrov mention, of about 2 hours with President Putin. We frankly discussed the current state of U.S.-Russia relations. I expressed the view that the current state of U.S.-Russia relations is at a low point. There is a low level of trust between our two countries. The world's two foremost nuclear powers cannot have this kind of relationship. We further discussed approaches to improving our channels of communication. We had a lengthy exchange of views regarding the situation in Syria and shared perspectives on possible ways forward. Earlier today, Foreign Minister Lavrov and I had a lengthy conversation about issues that require immediate attention and issues that require longer-term attention. We understand that improvement in the long-term relationship will be required if we are to make progress on issues where we have different views. We spoke extensively about Syria, and in some areas we share a common view. Specifically, we both believe in a unified and stable Syria, and we agree we want to deny a safe haven for terrorists who want to attack both of our countries. We agree that North Korea has to be denuclearized. We agreed there needs to be more senior level communication between our two countries, both at a diplomatic and military level. But there is a broad range of other issues in which we have differences. Some have global implications with long-term requirements, and others are understood to be bilateral. Over the course of the past 2 years, a number of reciprocal actions have been taken to demonstrate the dissatisfaction each country has with the other. We need to attempt to put an end to this steady degradation, which is doing nothing to restore the trust between our two countries or to make progress on the issues of the greatest importance to both of us. We've agreed to establish a working group to address smaller issues and make progress towards stabilizing the relationship so that we can then address the more serious problems. Foreign Minister Lavrov and I agreed we would consider further proposals made about the way forward in Syria, including consulting with our allies and coalition members. And we will continue discussions about how to find a solution to the Syrian conflict. We also discussed current threats posed by the North Korea's regime's ongoing development of their nuclear program, and the constructive role Russia can play in encouraging the regime in North Korea to change its course so that we can create the conditions for talks regarding the future. On Minsk, we considered the importance of the accord. Russia can make progress in the implementation by de-escalating violence and taking steps to withdraw separatist armed forces and heavy weapons so that OSCE observers can fulfill their role. Until full progress is made under the Minsk Accords, the situation in Ukraine will remain an obstacle to improvement in relations between the U.S. and Russia. I thank the Foreign Minister for a productive round of discussions, and I look forward to future conversations. Thank you.
Colleagues, now we will go over to questions on channel Russia 24. Russia 24. And my first question is to Mr. Tillerson. We have heard from Washington not only contradictory but also aggressive statements. I mean, Mr. Trump, who has called Assad an animal, and from the White House, Sean Spicer, who said that Hitler hadn't used chemical weapons. How does that actually fit in with American diplomacy, and when will the rhetoric change?
Well, I think the perspective from the United States, supported by the facts that we have, are conclusive, that the recent chemical weapons attack carried out in Syria was planned, and it was directed and executed by Syrian regime forces, and we're quite confident of that. This is just the latest in a series of the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime. notwithstanding their use on more than 50 occasions of chlorine bombs and cluster bombs and other types of weapons that are intended to maim and kill in the most horrific ways. So I think the characterization is one that President Assad has brought upon himself.